Embark on a riveting journey through Glacier National Park's eerie past, where we uncover 5 bone-chilling tales of mysterious vanishings and fatal twists within nature's breathtaking yet somber embrace. Delve into the heart of the wilderness to explore the fine line between its awe-inspiring beauty and the haunting reminders of its untamed might, holding you captive in a thrilling exploration of the darker side of nature's mysteries. In the summer of '67, Glacier National Park was a haven for adventure seekers, a sprawling wilderness waiting to be explored. 2 young women, Julie Helgeson and Michelle Coombs, set out on separate trips, unaware of the dangers hidden behind the area's beautiful landscapes. Julie, an enthusiastic soul from Minnesota, had come to Glacier with dreams of exploring its beauty. With her companion, Roy Ducat, she set out on the Highline Trail, a path winding through towering peaks and valleys. Their destination was the Granite Park Chalet. Julie and Roy made camp for the night. The air was dry yet cold. The stars shimmered overhead, and all seemed peaceful in embracing nature's majesty. Little did they know there was danger in every corner of where they were. Meanwhile, Michelle, a California native, went on her adventure with 4 fellow park employees. Their destination was Trout Lake, a serene oasis framed by towering pines and mirrored waters. Laughter filled the air as they set up camp, their spirits high with the promise of a peaceful evening under the stars. But as darkness descended upon the wilderness, a primal force stirred. A grizzly bear, filled with hunger and driven by instinct, stalked through the night, its senses keen for the scent of food. In the stillness of the forest, it caught wind of Julie and Roy's campsite, and with a terrifying roar, it descended upon them. The attack was swift and merciless. Claws slashed through the air, teeth gnashed against flesh, and Julie's desperate cries pierced the night. Roy fought valiantly to protect his companion, but against the bear's power, he was powerless to save her. At the same time, Michelle and her companions faced a similar nightmare at Trout Lake. As they prepared their evening meal, laughter turned to screams as a shadow fell over their campsite, a sign of impending doom. With heart-pounding terror, they watched as a grizzly bear charged into their camp. Panic ensued as Michelle's companions scattered in all directions, leaving her alone to face the beast's wrath. In a desperate bid for survival, she fought bravely against the onslaught, but against the relentless fury of the bear, she stood no chance. In her final moments, her painful cries echoed through the night. As dawn broke over Glacier National Park, the true extent of the tragedy became apparent. Julie's lifeless body lay crumpled amidst the wreckage of the campsite, her dreams of adventure extinguished by the savage brutality of the bear that attacked her. Michelle's mutilated remains were also found. In the aftermath of the attacks, a relentless hunt for the culprit bears ensued, culminating in the tragic demise of 2 innocent creatures. But amidst the horror, a beacon of hope emerged. The park rallied behind a renewed commitment to safety, implementing sweeping reforms to protect visitors and wildlife. Glacier National Park underwent a profound transformation from stringent food storage policies to educational initiatives. The legacy of Julie Helgeson and Michelle Coombs lives on in these measures, a tribute to lives lost but not forgotten. As the years passed, the wounds inflicted upon Glacier National Park began to heal, but the scars of that tragic night remain etched into the place forever. Today, visitors tread cautiously through its majestic terrain, mindful of the potential dangers. Glacier National Park in Montana was a go-to place for adventurers seeking the thrill of the great outdoors. Among them was Jackson Kreiser, a 19-year-old experienced worker at Lake McDonald Lodge, who deeply loved exploring. It was July 28th, a day like any other, when Jackson went on what he thought would be a simple day hike along the Floral Park Traverse. This route, known for its rough lands and breathtaking views, promised challenge and reward for those brave enough to follow its path. With a heart full of excitement and a backpack filled with essentials, Jackson set out from Logan Pass, his enthusiasm on the highest levels as he immersed himself in the beauty of the wilderness surrounding him. But as the hours passed and the miles disappeared beneath his boots, Jackson's euphoria gave way to a creeping sense of unease. The landscape, towering cliffs and dense vegetation, seemed to close around him. By late afternoon, Jackson had ventured farther than he had intended, his initial confidence giving way to uncertainty as he realized the challenge ahead. With each step, the terrain grew more treacherous, the path ahead obscured by jagged rocks and more challenging trails. As dusk descended upon the surroundings, Jackson found himself alone in Glacier National Park. Panic gripped his heart as he realized the gravity of his situation, his mind racing with thoughts of how he had strayed so far from the safety of civilization. Meanwhile, back at Lake McDonald Lodge, Jackson's absence sent ripples of concern through the tight-knit community of park employees. Rumors swirled as word spread of his ill-fated adventure, each whispered conversation filled with fear and uncertainty. Park officials had sprung into action by nightfall, mobilizing search and rescue teams to scour the wilderness for their missing comrade. The air buzzed with urgency as helicopters circled overhead, their searchlights piercing the darkness, desperately trying to locate Jackson's whereabouts. For 8 agonizing days, the search continued unabated, each passing moment fraught with tension and despair. Teams of skilled trackers and canine units combed the landscape, their efforts hampered by the terrain and the unpredictable weather. But despite their best efforts, Jackson's whereabouts remained a mystery. It seemed he vanished like a bubble, without any trace left. Then, on September 13th, a group of hikers stumbled upon a chilling sight amidst the wilderness, a lifeless body submerged in a shallow drainage southwest of Hidden Lake. Park rangers and coroners descended upon the scene, struggling with the harsh reality of Jackson's fate. As the autopsy revealed the grim truth behind Jackson's demise, exposure to the elements had claimed his life. His family in Michigan mourned the loss of their beloved son and brother. Their grief echoed across the miles, a reminder of the dangers of exploring the wilderness alone. In the wake of Jackson's tragic fate, visitors to Glacier National Park became aware of his story. They became even more cautious when doing hikes, even going in teams before embarking on adventures, to prevent themselves from having the same tragic fate as Jackson. What if Jackson had returned as soon as he realized he was getting lost? What if he had gone along with a companion rather than exploring the wilderness alone? These haunting questions lingered and will forever linger around Glacier National Park and the people who visit it. Yi Jianhua was a 27-year-old man with a love for adventure. Born and raised in Malaysia, he had always felt deeply connected to nature. So when he moved to the United States to pursue his studies, he was eager to explore the country's vast and wild landscapes. One summer day in August 2008, Yi Jian found himself standing at the entrance of Glacier National Park in Montana. He had planned to go on a hiking trip with his wife, Xu Yin, but a sudden family emergency had forced her to stay behind. Undeterred by the change of plans, Yi Jian decided to proceed with the trip alone. He was excited but nervous as he set out from Logan Pass, the starting point of his journey. The park rangers had warned him about the dangers of hiking alone, but Yi Jian was confident in his abilities. He had carefully prepared himself for the trip, packing all the necessary gear and supplies and leaving a detailed itinerary with the rangers. His route would take him through some of the park's most rugged and remote areas. The first leg of the journey led him into Floral Park, a breathtaking landscape of meadows and wildflowers. But beyond the park lay dangerous terrain, steep slopes and rocky outcrops. As Yi Jian went deeper into the wilderness, he encountered challenges that tested his bravery. The days were long and hard, with steep climbs and unpredictable weather. However, he continued with all he could, driven by a sense of adventure and a desire to experience the beauty of the natural world. However, as the days passed and Yi Jian failed to return as planned, his family grew increasingly worried. They contacted the park officials, who launched a massive search and rescue operation. Helicopters buzzed overhead, scouring the landscape for any sign of the missing hiker, while ground teams combed through the wilderness on foot. Despite their efforts, Yi Jian remained hidden. Weeks turned into months, and still no trace. His family clung to hope, praying for his safe return. But as time went on, their optimism faded away. Then, in July 2011, a discovery was made. A father and son, exploring near Avalanche Lake, stumbled upon a startling discovery. Remnants of Yi Jian's gear and clothing scattered amongst the rocks. It was a bittersweet moment, bringing both closure and heartache to his loved ones. Further investigation led to the recovery of bone fragments, which were later confirmed to be Yi Jian's remains. The news shocked his community, reigniting speculation about what had happened to him during those terrifying days in the wilderness alone. Theories abounded, with some speculating that Yi Jian had fallen victim to the harsh conditions of the park, while others believed he may have encountered dangerous wildlife. Yet amidst the speculation and conjecture, one question remained unanswered. What had indeed happened to Yi Jian Hua? The park officials closed the case, citing the lack of conclusive evidence, but for Yi Jian's family, the mystery still haunts them. They found peace in the knowledge that he had been found, but the circumstances of his death haunted them still. On a warm summer day in June 2016, Brad Treat, a 38-year-old Forest Service officer, set out on one of his favorite activities, mountain biking. Brad loved the outdoors and often rode his bike along the trails of Flathead National Forest. On this particular day, he explored the outer trail of the Green Gate Trails with a friend. Brad was no stranger to these trails. He knew them like the back of his hand, having jogged them with his wife almost every morning. But little did he know that this ride would be different, that his destiny had something unexpected in store for him. As Brad and his friend pedaled along the trail, enjoying the beauty of nature around them, they rounded a blind curve. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a massive grizzly bear appeared, sending shockwaves through the forest. Brad, traveling at 20 to 25 miles per hour, collided with the bear with tremendous force. The impact was catastrophic. Brad was thrown over the handlebars of his bike, crashing to the ground with a sickening thud. His wrists and left shoulder bore the brunt of the collision, shattering upon impact. Meanwhile, the bear, startled by the sudden collision, let out a roar of pain and confusion. Brad's friend, trailing behind him, witnessed the horrific scene unfold before his eyes. He heard the bone-chilling sound of the impact and saw Brad lying motionless on the ground, the bear standing over him. Fear gripped his heart as he realized the danger they were in. In a panic, Brad's friend decided to turn back and seek help. He knew they were miles away from civilization, with no means of communication or defense against the mighty bear. With adrenaline coursing through his veins, he raced back along the trail, desperate to find someone to help. It felt like an eternity before he finally reached a spot where he could call for help. The clock was ticking, every second bringing Brad closer to the brink of death. He relayed the harrowing details of the incident to the 911 dispatcher, his voice trembling with fear and urgency. Meanwhile, deep in the heart of the forest, Brad lay unconscious, his life hanging in the balance. The bear, disoriented and in pain, stood over him, unsure what to do next. As the minutes turned into hours, rescue crews scrambled to reach Brad's location. The dense foliage and rugged terrain posed a complex challenge, slowing their progress to a crawl. Every passing moment felt like an eternity. Finally, rescuers arrived at the scene. They found Brad lying motionless on the trail, his body broken and battered by the brutal encounter. His helmet, shattered by the force of the impact, lay beside him, and despite their best efforts, it was too late. Brad had succumbed to his injuries, his life snuffed out in a moment of senseless tragedy. Once a place of refuge and natural beauty, the forest had become a haunting reminder of the dangers that awaited those who dared to venture into its depths. In the days that followed, investigators combed through the evidence, piecing together the events that led to Brad's untimely death. DNA samples collected from the scene revealed the identity of the grizzly bear, a young male with no history of aggression toward humans. It was a sobering revelation, shedding light on the true nature of the encounter. Brad's death was not the result of a deliberate attack, but rather a tragic accident born out of the unpredictable nature of the wild. The bear, startled by the sudden collision, reacted instinctively, leading to a catastrophic outcome for both the man and the animal. On a regular Monday afternoon, May 22, 2023, Athir Al-Qatani, a 28-year-old grad student from the University of Kansas, decided to visit Glacier National Park with her friends. She had just finished her first year of studies and wanted to celebrate by exploring the beauty of nature. Athir loved being outdoors, surrounded by trees, rivers, and mountains. It was a passion she had developed since childhood, growing up in Saudi Arabia. So when the opportunity arose to visit Glacier National Park, she eagerly seized it. Joined by her friends from Kansas, Athir embarked on a road trip adventure, excited to experience the wonders of one of America's most breathtaking national parks. As they arrived at Avalanche Creek, Athir was captivated by the sight of the rushing water formed from melted glaciers carving its way through the rough landscapes. Eager to get a closer look, Athir wandered off the designated trails, drawn to a rocky overhang overlooking the creek. She stood there, taking in the magnificent view, the sound of rushing water filling her ears. But then, in a split second, tragedy struck. Athir lost her footing and tumbled over the edge, plummeting into the icy waters below. Her friends, shocked and terrified, watched helplessly as she disappeared from view. In a panic, they called out to her, desperately hoping she would resurface unharmed. But there was no sign of Athir. The once serene atmosphere was filled with fear and confusion. Her friends frantically searched for her, their voices echoing through the canyon as they called out her name. Minutes felt like hours as they waited for any sign of their friend. And then suddenly, they spotted her struggling in the swift current, her body being carried downstream by the force of the water. They sprang into action without hesitation, wading into the creek to reach her. Risking their safety, Athir's friends fought against the powerful current, reaching out to grab hold of her. With sheer determination, they managed to pull her limp body from the water, their hearts pounding with fear and adrenaline. Laying Athir on the rocky shore, her friends frantically began performing CPR, desperately trying to revive her. They prayed for a miracle, refusing to accept the terrifying reality of what had just happened. Meanwhile, a passerby who had witnessed the incident rushed to call for help. Flathead County Dispatch received the frantic call, alerting park officials to the emergency unfolding at Avalanche Creek. Within minutes, National Park Service staff, an alert helicopter, and Three Rivers ambulance were on their way to the scene. But despite their best efforts, it was too late. As the emergency responders arrived, they found Athir's friends huddled around her lifeless body, their faces etched with sorrow and disbelief. Despite their efforts and attempts to save her, Athir had slipped away, leaving behind a trail of grief and unanswered questions. As news of the tragedy spread, shock and sadness rippled through the community. Athir's family in Lawrence, Kansas, were devastated by the news, struggling to come to terms with the sudden loss of their beloved daughter and sister. In the days that followed, law enforcement officials launched an investigation into the circumstances surrounding Athir's death. They combed through witness statements and examined the incident scene, searching for clues illuminating what had happened. Initial reports suggested no foul play, but as investigators delved deeper, they uncovered a troubling pattern. It wasn't the first time a visitor to Glacier National Park had met a tragic end. Water-related incidents, like the one that claimed a deer's life, were alarmingly common in the park, especially during the spring runoff season. As theories began to emerge about what might have led to a deer's fall, her friends and family were left struggling to accept the painful reality of her absence. They wondered if there was anything they could have done differently, if they could have prevented the tragedy that had befallen their beloved Aether. Months passed, but the pain of Aether's loss remained as raw as ever. Her friends and family struggled to come to terms with the fact that she was gone, her vibrant personality erased far too soon. And as they mourned her passing, they vowed to honor her memory by cherishing their shared moments and never taking life's precious moments for granted.